While convicted felon Donald Trump's federal criminal cases have gone the way of history for now, he does still have several civil cases pending. There's the still unpaid, up on appeal New York AG civil fraud judgment, which has now swelled to over $500 million. And E. Jean Carroll's two major civil verdicts totaling over $85 million, which Trump also continues to fight in appeals court. Add on top of that, at least 8 civil suits from law enforcement officers, congressional Democrats, and the estate of a Capitol officer who died, all relating to the January 6th insurrection. Those don't even include the litigation that Trump himself has brought against 60 Minutes and others. Trump may be returning to the Oval Office, but his legal battles, they're not going anywhere. Joining me now is Mary McCord, former acting AG for National Security at the Department of Justice and visiting professor at Georgetown Law. Mary, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us. I really wanted to talk today, as we're on the eve of Trump's second term, about these civil cases, because a lot of people say, oh, civil, not so exciting, as sexy as a criminal case. But these are the ones that have staying power because the Supreme Court has said that a sitting president has to participate in a civil litigation process. Your thoughts about the myriad cases that Donald Trump has in the civil world?
I mean, when you really think about it, it's remarkable. No president, certainly in my lifetime, and I don't think in history, has ever been involved in so much litigation during a presidency, and it's going to be during a presidency. While it's true that the 4 criminal cases, 2 have been completely dismissed, 1 is basically finished. What's the only thing left, and that's, of course, the Manhattan case, is his appeal, Donald Trump's appeal of that, and 1 is stalled. That's the Georgia case. But the civil litigation, both cases against him and cases that he has brought or indicated he might bring, including against his own Department of Justice, what will be his own Department of Justice, it's pretty shocking. And, I think some of these are very significant cases. I mean, certainly the E. Jean Carroll case involved actually sexual assault and defamation about that sexual assault. And yet, nevertheless, those verdicts were here well before the election. And so I think sometimes when you do, hear people think, who cares about these civil cases? I think they're significant. The Letitia James civil fraud case resulting in the award, as you just indicated, started at $350 million and it keeps going up because of interest. Those are things that the American people were aware of when they went to the polls. And so, I do think they're significant, and it's going to be significant that he is going to be defending these cases during his presidency. But they do seem to have sort of escaped the real notice and concern of the American people. And also, Katie, I think just as significant are the cases that he has brought, particularly his targeting the media, which makes me extremely concerned. ABC, CBS, CNN. ABC settled a case that I think many of us thought was defensible. I'm reading CBS is considering settling a case that I think we thought was defensible. And Donald Trump has indicated there's potentially more of that to come.
So, Mary, I'm glad you brought that up because that was going to be my follow-up question. There are lawsuits within which Donald Trump is the plaintiff right now. It's not just the ones where he's defending. Those are the ones you're talking about, the ones against the media and others. If those cases continue, and the reason why I say if is he can elect as the plaintiff to dismiss them voluntarily. He can say, I don't want to pursue this while I'm back in the Oval Office. But assuming, arguendo, those do proceed, Donald Trump does subject himself to depositions, for example, interrogatories that have to be answered under oath and in writing, and other discovery vehicles within which Donald Trump has to commit himself to answers. But we've seen what happens when Trump testifies. We saw what happened in the E. Jean Carroll civil suit brought by Robbie Kaplan as her lawyer, where he made all of those incredibly gross and egregious admissions on a videotape depo. So, Mary, do you think, though, this is still going to resonate in any way with the American public, or do you think they're a little bit kind of disillusioned with how the judicial system has played out for them?
I mean, I think there's a disillusionment, at least among a portion of the population, who has bought into the rhetoric about the criminal cases being a form of weaponization or political misuse of the Department of Justice. I think that's wrong. I think, these are things we've discussed many times. And I will note that civil case that you mentioned that I didn't talk about, the 8 civil cases of police officers from January 6th and members of Congress, that will also, as that proceeds, be be a situation where more and more information about January 6th will still come out, so long as that moves forward. And that is right now in litigation about whether anything that he's being sued for, there was an official act for which he can't be held civilly liable. And that decision should come out this summer. But to your point, to the cases he's brought, yes, if he maintains them, he will subject himself to the ordinary discovery processes. And we've seen what happens when he does a deposition, and it oftentimes doesn't reflect very well on him. But that assumes the cases go forward. As I indicated, ABC settled theirs. I've read, I don't know if this is true, that CBS is considering settling. And so the question is, will some of these media companies, will they settle and, forego that opportunity to depose Donald Trump and get discovery? Or will they continue, to say, hey, we're going to defend ourselves? And that, I think that it's troublesome to me. As believe it or not, I had a journalism degree before I became a lawyer, and I feel very strongly about journalism in America, and I am very worried about its future with some of the pressure that he is putting on media companies, and also media companies like the Washington Post, owned by Jeff Bezos, who it seems by all accounts is really trying to curry favor with the president, the incoming president, at least with respect to the editorial side of that paper. The straight up news reporting side, I think, has been immune from that so far. But it's worrisome to me what we're seeing in terms of this relationship between media companies and the incoming president.
Mary, somebody who doesn't bend the knee, I think Jeff Bezos has done so. Somebody who doesn't is you. I want to thank you for always being a patriot, your service, not only for our federal government, but you also continue to serve by testifying during the Senate confirmation hearings dealing with Pam Bondi. You testified about the importance of the non-weaponization of the DOJ. It didn't happen in the Biden administration. It was not going to happen in a Kamala Harris administration, but we know that it's going to happen in a Donald Trump administration. Your thoughts about Pam Bondi as the Attorney General?
So it was an interesting day for me because I was there with other witnesses, 3 witnesses who had worked with her for decades in Florida when she was the district attorney and the state attorney general. And they worked with her on, criminal investigations and law enforcement, 1 sheriff, 2 prosecutors. And they really talked about how successful they were in working with her in doing things like shutting down the pill mills. That was, the opioid epidemic, so many pills being illegally prescribed in Florida. And so I will give her credit as a prosecutor for doing that. But that doesn't answer the questions that she herself was not able to answer the previous day about what will she do when Donald Trump comes to her and really asks her to do something that questions her loyalty. Will she choose, loyalty, or will she choose the rule of law? And I don't know Pam Bondi, and I want to take her at her word when she swears an oath to tell the truth and says she believes in independence and not the weaponization of the Department of Justice. But some of the answers, I think, left that open. And so the points I was trying to make were not really personal as to her because I don't know her, but things that are so important to the credibility of the Department of Justice include things like recognizing as the Attorney General that your oath is to the Constitution, not a person, not the president. And when the choice is between what the president wants you to do and the constitutional restrictions, you have to choose the Constitution. You need to recuse when your impartiality could be reasonably questioned. And you need to maintain that White House no contacts policy that says the White House the Department of Justice will not communicate to the White House about pending or contemplated law enforcement investigations. Those are critical to that independence of the Department of Justice. That is not constitutionally required, but it is a norm that has been upheld under Republican and Democratic administrations ever since Watergate.
Until before the first term and until now, Mary, I appreciate you taking the time to be here. Mary McCord, thank you so much.